Hello and welcome to the last episode of the Game of the Year
Yes!
What?
Yes!
Final episode of our Game of the Year deliberations for here at Pixel Related Podcast. We're at the end. Apparently, Adam is.
It is done.
Is really. I love these. I love having these arguments and stuff like that. It's really fun to me.
I do like it, but I also don't like losing a shitload of it. That is just never gonna see the light of day.
Yeah, that's really rough. We had some really good. We had some really good discussions in there that are lost to time. But what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? So we got two categories left, you guys. We have the game that you forgot came out this year. So we got a little bit of negative, and then we got the big one. We got Game of the Year. But before we get started, I'm your host. I'm Kyle. Joining me as always, we have Adam.
Fucking bury this thing in the ground.
And then of course we have Gus.
Jesus, what's up, people?
End it. End it. So, did we last year have a worst game of the year? Because I don't think we did one this year. We did not do one this year, and I'm trying to remember when we ended up cutting that.
I think we cut worst game last year and kind of put it into disappointing.
Yeah.
Just because look, there's a lot of bad games, and I think what we ended up happening was. I would play one game that was really bad, and, you would play one game or two games that were really... it would end up just being yeah, trust me, guys, you don't want to play this game. It's really bad. Just trust me on this. Just trust me. I remember making a... Defense isn't the right word. I remember making a case for Scream Ride, going oh, God, it's just awful. It's just barely a game.
Yeah, I have an Xbox One X, and I played that, and... I guess, is that technically a fucking game? What? I
don't know.
I went on there and I pushed the stick forward and it went forward, and I was okay.
Yeah, you had to lean a little bit too. Yeah, it's bad. It's barely a game. It's a collection of bad mini games that would be maybe acceptable Mario Party mini games. I don't know why we're talking about Scream Ride in 2017.
Mario Party is not an acceptable game. Periods. Yeah, so
Mario Party 2.
So
good.
Mario Party N64 Mario Parties are great. I haven't played a ton since then, except for the most recent one, which was okay. Mario Party 10, I want to say, with the most recent one was okay. It's not great. It's just
is that the one where you teamed up against Bowser?
Yeah.
It was the single car.
Yeah,
yeah, it's a single car thing, and that one's fine, but it's it kind of loses a lot of what Mario Party is.
Yeah. It's just a cutthroat.
What is Mario Party though?
Mario Party is about random generated numbers screwing you over at the end of the game. That's what Mario Party is about.
Deep-seated alcoholism. That's what Mario Party is about.
All right, so we got two categories today. We're going to start off with a little bit of a downer, and then we're going to start with a lot of really good. So we got the game that you forgot came out this year. I think that name is pretty self-evident. It's a game that we just you remember that? Oh yeah, I forgot that came. And there's a lot of them on here. And there's a good story that we'll get to when we get to them on the list. But we got For Honor, we got Halo Wars 2, we got Ghost Recon Wildlands, we got Mario Sports Superstars, we got Gravity Rush 2, we got Lawbreakers, we got Agents of Mayhem, we got Life is Strange Before the Storm, we have Knack 2, we have Prey, Drawn to Death, and finally Absolver. So Adam, I made you really happy. No, go ahead.
I think that we should probably also say, just because we forgot it came out this year doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad game unless we explicitly state that it's a bad game.
It just means it's a forgettable game, It's a
forgettable game, yeah.
So Adam, about mid-August or so, I kind of shocked you because I put both Lawbreakers and Agents of Mayhem on this list about a week after they came out.
About a week after it came out. Yeah. Yeah, that was savage. That was savage question. Savage question.
Let's be real. It's a legitimate nomination for this list. Unfortunately,
you know what? Yeah.
Unfortunately,
even a week after it was pretty much there. Oh, I guess let's.
Yeah, let's start diving into
Like,
it.
how do we start with this?
So, I mean, so this, the nice thing about this is when we're cutting games from this list, that's actually a positive thing that we're cutting them, because it means we think they are more memorable than the other stuff that ends up on this list.
Yeah, that's true.
I would
Positive spin.
maybe cut Prey off of this list. I think that game is very much in that okay category. Yeah. It's an okay game, and if that is the sort of thing that you're into, those sort of, I guess, is it like Sim? I don't know. It's not Sims, but that kind of Bioshocky, sort of thing. It's fine. Like,
I think
it's not my thing, but it's somebody's thing, and that's fine.
Yeah,
fine.
I mean, yeah, I've seen it on some Game of the Year lists around, and I will admit I was kind of surprised to see that. It's one of those games that seems like it had a lot of hype. Maybe not a lot of hype, but it had a interest of like, hey, this could end up being a really like interesting, like it could have been a game that would have been on like our best surprise list if it had ended up being really good. And I think it ended up just kind of like you were saying, just kind of okay. But yeah, like
we also did we have anything to add for this one at all? Anybody have anything?
I threw in the last two a couple days ago just because I thought maybe they were worth talking about, the Drawn to Death and Absolver, but I couldn't really think of anything else.
Yeah, Drawn to Death.
I mean, we can talk about those for sure. I don't know that they're necessarily. I think there's two really strong contenders that were put onto this list within a week of their release.
Yeah.
And then I think there's a third one we've got to decide on.
I think I feel like I still see stuff about Absolver popping up from time to time.
Yeah.
Like that is so much not a game for me, like at all. But I
would love to get my hands on it, but in a year that is as crowded as this is, look, I was telling you guys, like, my list of shit that I have played or that I want to play, it's hovering right now, or like is on my Game of the Year list, is hovering around 30. So like this is the year of too many games, and I think that like Absolver just kind of falls into that. Like there's just too many other games. I would also say that I feel the same way about For Honor. Like I think that game is good. I think it's solid. I think that if there was less stuff coming out around the time because that game came out in February.
Yeah.
And I think if Horizon if Legend of Zelda, like if those hadn't come out around that time, I think that there would be maybe more of a case, in the same way that I think that Absolver has this case. So I think like the core of For Honor is pretty okay.
Yeah,
it's not.
I think so.
It's not a bad game. It's not. It's the sort of game that I own. I own it. I would like to go back to it at some point. And it's a game that I keep going like, man, I really want to do that, but there's too much other shit that's out this year.
Yeah, I mean, For Honor went all in with their like, we're going these like season battles and pick the faction that you're going to be a part of and push the line of war and like all that stuff, and it's like, yeah, like, sorry, we moved on to other games like about 3 weeks into your first season of stuff. Like, it's not that it was necessarily a bad game. It was just, I think it's kind of the same as Prey. Like, I think it's just kind of like a middling game. Like, it's definitely unique. Like, there's nothing really out there like that. But
there's, I mean, that is also like that game falls into like what Ubisoft is doing right now, which is they are doing a legitimately good job of supporting their games post-release. Like, they're, Rainbow Six like had this really great resurgence. Even Assassin's Creed has had like quite a bit of sizable updates in the couple of months that they've put it out. So like For Honor, I feel like is a game that like if you really were into it, you're probably still like I mean, I'm sure it's like every online fighting game where there are people who are complaining about balances and things like that.
Sure,
but,
but they've been adding new characters and stuff like that I'm sure have messed with that balance and that mixture of classes and stuff like that. Kind of along those same lines, I think we could probably take Wildlands off of there. Like, it's weird that there was like a full-on like.
Boy, oh boy! I got reminded real heavily a couple weeks ago that game existed. Man.
With the Predator stuff that they put out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, I maybe should consider getting that game, but I have no interest in playing that.
Yeah,
game.
it's crazy that I mean I think for me I got burned by Future Soldier. What was the one before this? Was it Ghost Recon Future Soldier? Something like that.
Future Soldier sounds right. Yeah.
That game looked so cool, and it was so just kind of middling that I like this one kind of came and went, and I was just like, nah, like I haven't heard anything great. Like, it seems like it was kind of the same type of thing. And then they've been pretty heavily supporting it. Like, they added a PvP mode. They added like a mission where you get to hunt down the Predator for some reason in this
Why not?
realistic Colombian cartel military shooter. Like, what?
Yeah, that's great.
No, like it seems like that. Like,
great.
that could be a game that I could like get on like a sale on like Humble Bundle for like $6 or something like that, and get a group of friends together and maybe have some fun with. Like I could see myself doing that at some point if they continue to support it like they would, and there's still like a community around it. But it did seem like it was kind of a middling game.
I think that we maybe should cut off Gravity Rush 2 off of here, kind of for a similar reason that we were talking with Prey. Absolver, like, that game seems like it's really good. It just has this unfortunate thing of its timing was bad. From everything I've heard about that game sounds like it's really good. And I know that remaster that they put out last year for the PS4, like, that was really well built. And I think that game, like, again, I feel like there's a lot of these on here, and a few way less so, that if this was a different year, this stuff would be more remembered.
Yeah, it's almost kind of a shame that Gravity Rush 2 kind of got delegated to I honestly am not even entirely sure when it came out, but I remember that it was coming out.
It was January.
And
it was January.
Maybe that is a really long time ago, but like this part of it's like, like it was look, it's a sequel to a Vita game. Like, I know that they did like the full proper PS4 re-release last year, but it is a sequel to a Vita game, which means not a lot of people played it. But it was also like one of those Vita games that I always heard people talk about. Like, I wherever my Vita is, it's over. I don't know, it's down there somewhere, or it's over there. So I don't know, it's around here somewhere.
It was the one good exclusive Vita game.
It was one of those games I always heard people about, and I have it because it was a PlayStation Plus game at some point, so I could go check it out. But yeah, it's just one of those games. Like, it seems like it was good, but it kind of got lost in kind of like the earlier shuffle of games, and kind of had an uphill battle to begin with, anyways, just by being a sequel to a Vita game, which it's kind of a death sentence by itself.
So there are two on here that I'm looking at that I'm going, is the reason that we forgot they came out this year is because no.
Oh, we lost Adam again. So he was saying that because no one played it. I don't know. Maybe that's what he was saying. We'll just pause for a second here. I mean, that's kind of how I feel about Mario Sports Superstars. Like, I didn't really have any anticipation for that game.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a 3DS game. So I mean, like, it has. Oh, we lost Adam completely. All right, we're gonna pause for a second. Hold on.
This is a fun evening of
there we go.
Tech. I just dropped completely for some reason.
Cool.
I don't know. There was. It didn't say that there was anything going on with it. So. So it sounded like we paused. So
yeah, kind of. Yeah. So you were going to pull out two games that you think people are on here because people didn't play them. Is that what you were trying to say?
Yeah. I'll just kind of loop back to it. So there are two games on here that I'm looking at that I think that they're on here mostly because we didn't care that they came out this year, and that's mostly Mario Sports Superstars and Knack 2.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that any of us. I don't think anybody gave a shit. I don't actually think anybody gave a shit about Knack 2.
Knack 2 seems like it could potentially be interesting, but kind of like what you were saying, like in a year of all the games that came out this year, that is so far down my list of things that I would ever go back and check out. Like, I haven't gotten around to playing like Assassin's Creed and South Park and like finishing Horizon. Like I'm not gonna go play Knack 2. Like that is way down the list.
Didn't that come out like the same week as Destiny 2 also? Or
I think
like
so.
That? Like,
yeah, or like like a couple days after or a couple days before or something like that. Like,
yeah. But I mean, like, if it was a better game, they appeal to such different demographics that like I think that if it was a thing that was like just a better game, that it probably would be maybe a little bit more known. But Knack 2 is not a good game. It's a pretty fucking bad game. Like, hey, guess what? Knack 1 is a pretty fucking bad game too.
Okay.
And Mario Sports Superstars, like, I really like the Mario Tennis and Mario Golf games. I really like those, but it's a 3DS game.
Yeah, that's what I would kind of say. Like, it's like I'm not expecting a whole lot from that because it's 3DS. Now, if they put out Mario Sports Superstars for the Switch and it was like underwhelming or disappointing, like that would be something I would be try to pay a lot more attention to. A 3DS game, like that's not how you play those games. You should be playing those games like locally with your friends. Like,
I actually almost would put Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon on here before I put those.
I forgot. I literally was about to say I forgot that came out this year.
Actually, hold on. I think we're gonna maybe add that to the list because I think that maybe is worth a discussion.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was. You could type it in. I don't think it makes this list because I mean, ultimately, it is a re-release of last year's games. And from everything I've heard, those games are really good, Sun and Moon. And so, like, I don't know what the point of Ultra Sun and Moon was. I know they've done this a lot of times, like Pokemon. What was it? Money. Pokemon Platinum or whatever they did, or Crystal.
Yeah, like, there was like Pokemon White and Black too.
Yeah,
that those came out. This is kind of like.
Is it closer to that versus like because like there was like they did like Pokemon. Yeah. What was it? Diamond and Platinum, and then they did like Emerald. I think it was the third one then, and it was kind of like that's what I always got the feeling like it was kind of like it's kind of the same story, but it's like it's amped up a little bit with new stuff.
It's a continuation of that story.
Okay.
It's a continuation of the kind of ending of Pokemon Sun and Moon. But it's also set like on the same island in the same region with like a few new Pokemon.
Sure, yeah.
It's still like, and considering like I played the shit out of Moon last year, I haven't touched this game, and I have it sitting on our shelves over here, and I haven't felt any need or desire to go to it.
I'm surprised you got it because like this seems to me like. Nothing was really drawing me to even look into that. Granted, I didn't play Sun and Moon either. The last one I played was X, a couple of years ago, which I did really like. I put it on there. I think because of the fact that if there was going to be a kind of final hurrah, I guess you'd say, for the 3DS, that should have been.
It probably should be this.
Yeah.
It probably should be this game. But I feel like this thing came out, and like especially when you consider how Pokemon Sun and Moon were last year, how they were kind of this really big thing. The fact that this thing came out, and I think it's also due in no small part to the fact that the Switch is out. The 3DS is now a pretty old piece of technology that, like, it's still pretty cheap to get one, but that thing is really showing.
They just put out a new one. They put out a 2DS that clamshells. I mean, I'll say in reality, the last hurrah of the 3DS is probably the Metroid 2: Samus Returns remake that they did. That came out in like August or whatever. Like everything I've heard seems like that version of that is pretty great.
I mean, but like I would say that Pokemon is kind of a bigger thing.
Oh, sure. No, I mean, in like, it sounds like that Metroid game was really good, and that's the only place you can play that. Where like it seems like this is. I mean, I haven't really heard any talk of whether it's good or whether it's worthwhile or anything like that.
Right, and that's exactly what I'm saying. Is like I feel like this game, especially when you compare it to where we were a year ago.
Yeah.
With Sun and Moon.
In the midst
Like,
of Pokemon Go fanaticism.
Yeah, like that definitely helped that game. I guess maybe let's table this one.
Sure,
because I think
I'm okay with that.
So going back to the whole thing about games that people maybe didn't care if they came out. So Halo Wars 2.
Yeah.
Was there any expectation among the three? Because I have not played Halo Wars 1.
I played a little bit of Halo Wars 1.
I'm not a Halo fan.
Aside from PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, I guess Cuphead, I think this is the only AAA Xbox exclusive that came out this year. Even PlayerUnknown's and Cuphead. I mean, those are all like downloadable games. Well, I think you can get a retail version of Battlegrounds. But I think it's the only AAA $60 exclusive that Microsoft put out this year. And
was there Forza this year?
Sure. I never count Forza because those come out every year.
Yeah, Forza, Super Lucky's Tale.
I don't count that. That's a remake of an Oculus Rift game. Whatever.
There was Phantom Dust that came out.
Sure, that technically came out. Cool. But the fact that Halo Wars 2 came out, I mean, the fact that they made any type of big deal about it at all is kind of bizarre. But it came out, they kind of put it out to die, and that same thing, late January, early February timeframe, I think is when it came out. And it feel like it just had no footprint whatsoever. I don't think I've heard any, I've been reading a lot of, Game of the Year lists, been listening to lots of, podcasts and stuff like that. I don't think I've heard that mentioned a single time so far of anything I've listened to. And that's impressive for... I mean, I know it's a side game, but it is a Halo game, and it is one of the quote unquote major Microsoft exclusives for this year. When I look at it, I think it might be those top 3 on this list as Halo, Lawbreakers, and Agents of Mayhem.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Because there was a time when any game with the word Halo in the title, I was all for it. I mean, I even tried Halo Wars 1, but the bad taste from Halo 5 and then. I don't know, man. Well,
let me tell you about a series that I thought that I used to be really interested in seeing where that went. Life is Strange.
Life is Strange, yeah.
I think that game. I think the difference for me between Halo Wars and Life is Strange is that Halo Wars was never
good
a game that was on my radar or anything that I gave a shit about.
Right.
And I really liked that first Life is Strange game.
Sure.
And then this thing comes out and they don't have the original voice cast because of the voice strike.
Yeah.
And they have it as a prequel and
without the main without the main mechanic that made Life is Strange interesting. I
feel like that to me is, and maybe that would fit into more of a disappointment.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was just thinking. Because I'm well aware that Life is Strange was out, and I kind of did, and I kind of just checked out of it because I'm that doesn't sound like it has any of the things that I want out of Life is Strange, as well as it's focusing on the character who had some of the most annoying dialogue and mannerisms in that game, bro.
Hella
it's
hella dialogue.
It's hella.
I don't know.
She's a good character. I mean, I think that there's something interesting to be said about seeing what was it? Rachel was the girl that died.
Yeah, Rachel.
Seeing what that was about. That's a cool idea. But yeah, it does kind of lose something when it's not the time rewind mechanic, and then it's just a Telltale game, Yeah.
Fair enough. I think we could cut it off the list. I think that maybe if it was in the disappointment thing, but also I haven't played that game, so I can't tell you what that game's like. And I own it. I have it. I got it for $6 for the deluxe edition.
Yeah. I feel like I've heard okay things about it. People have been yeah, it's fine.
Drawn to Death.
Yeah, we talked in the Lost episode.
Yeah.
We talked about Drawn to Death in the biggest disappointment category.
I guess for me that's maybe a little bit more of a thing where it's a David Jaffe game, and I know David Jaffe, and I like the stuff that guy has made in the past, and the fact that this game just kind of came out and then was gone immediately.
Yeah. Like it's a strong contender in this category, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
Like that should have been a bigger deal. The fact that was a game that came out.
It's a David Jaffe game. Yeah, I think that is, especially because it was when Sony was first talking up the ideas of having free-to-play games on their system. Drawn to Death was the one that they were like, oh yeah, and by the way, we got this game from David Jaffe, and here's the trailer of him doing all the drawing stuff, and that's what it all looks like. And the fact that it just came out and is now gone, well, I guess not gone.
I mean,
but like,
I can't imagine the player base is that big.
Yeah, especially for it. It's sort of like what was the game that we had last year? Was the multiplayer game that we said that because it was. Man,
I don't remember.
This is the exact.
I don't remember.
It deserves.
Exactly.
Yeah. The fact that it's a multiplayer game.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. So we've got like.
But look at Adam. If you're looking at a multiplayer game with a man who has a pretty big name as far as video games go that failed completely and no one seemed to notice. It seems like Lawbreakers is a lot more sad than Drawn to Death because I was
a lot more of a sad, savage sort of deal.
Yeah, because that's Cliff Bleszinski coming back with his brand new studio, been hyping up for such a long time, and it seems like it's not necessarily that bad of a game, but just I think even the people who bought it, I think, forgot that they have it. It seems like the player base for that game is practically zero.
It was, I think, like within a week, I want to say floating in the hundreds.
Yeah.
It was a very quick, very, very quick death that thing had. Yeah, I would take Lawbreakers over that because I don't associate Jaffe with it was Battleborn. It was fucking Battleborn. Was the one last year.
Battleborn for sure. Yeah.
But I would definitely associate Bleszinski more than I would with Jaffe with online multiplayer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Twisted Metal. I mean, it's not.
Yeah. I mean, it's not online.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well,
yeah.
I guess
some of the later ones were.
It did start online.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it eventually with like. I think Black had its weird online version that came out.
Yeah. And of course the most recent, which was just the recent Twisted Metal, was of course that. But
it wasn't a good game.
No, it doesn't seem like. And then the other one on this list is Agents of Mayhem, which is kind of that same thing. Like if you think Visceral's the team that is behind Saints Row, like I love, and I know you do as well, Adam, like Saints Row 3, Saints Row the third, Saints Row 4 are both great games. And I know that this is not a Saints Row game, but it definitely is Saints Row-esque. And it just seems so bland and uninteresting and...
Yeah, I definitely think that... Lawbreakers and Agents of Mayhem make this list. Agents of Mayhem is that thing of like it is such a forgettable look to it. It's such a forgettable style. It's such a forgettable really everything about it.
Yeah, like it picks like it's all about like, hey, we have like these 12 different characters that you can mix and match, but they're all like just the most generic, stereotypical characters that you could come up with. Like, ugh.
Yeah. So then it's to Halo Wars 2 and Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. And I think that it's Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon only because of the fact that last year we had one of the biggest Pokemon games, actually two of the biggest Pokemon games of all time. You can say whether or not you think that Pokemon Go is a Pokemon game technically.
Pokemon thing. Let's call it that.
It has the branding. It has the branding. It has the moniker. And those two things came out, and then for this thing to come out and not a single person that I know has talked about this game or said anything about it. It's a thing that, like I said, I have it over right there, and I could very easily just go and grab it, but I'm not going to because there's other things right now, and do I really want to go back to that sort of gameplay right now?
Yeah, and if it was a Halo game, like if like Halo Wars was like a proper Halo game or something like that, it would definitely be a different consideration. But Pokemon's a big franchise, and this maybe not like a mainline Pokemon game per se, but it's an extension of a mainline Pokemon game. Where Halo Wars is this kind of weird offshoot thing
it's a side
that's already a kind of a niche game to begin with by being like a console-based RTS. So I could see that. Yeah, I could definitely see that.
To me, it just always seemed like Halo Wars, and the same thing could probably be said for Pokemon as well. But Halo Wars seemed like it was specifically a filler game.
Yeah,
that they realized like, oh yeah, we don't really have anything planned for this year.
Yeah.
You got to imagine at some point during the planning process they realized like, oh shit, Halo 6 is probably not going to be ready for this year, so let's, I don't know, maybe ramp up the production on it or try to get it out there. But I do think that like as a side thing, this Halo Wars does, I think, like very little just in general.
Yeah,
definitely. And it already had such a small base of people who cared about it.
For sure.
As an RTS, where I think that Pokemon, like I said, everybody was playing Pokemon last year. Like a lot of people were playing Pokemon in one form or another.
Okay.
Now we got a loser here.
I think it's Lawbreakers. I really do. Like,
I think
it's Lawbreakers.
Like, just
I think it's Lawbreakers. And you know what? The more that I think about it last year, like it probably should have also been Battleborn last year, because I think that multiplayer games in this category. So last year was Mirror's Edge.
Okay, that's I mean that's a really good one too, though.
It's a strong contender. But I think that multiplayer games live or die on their base. And that was the case that I was making last year for Battleborn, is that base just wasn't there. Yeah. And this game died so much quicker than Battleborn.
Yeah.
Which is scary.
And it had, in reality, like, I mean, that's not the type of thing that Gearbox is known for, which, I mean, I know this is a brand new studio, but, like, Cliff Bleszinski is the Gears of War guy. Like, that is a good pedigree behind this game from, what's the studio? I don't even remember what the studio was.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it still a studio? I don't know. It might not be.
He worked on Unreal Tournament too, didn't he?
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Oh yeah, I mean be an Epic. I mean all that stuff, but like shooters and stuff like that. And it seems like Lawbreakers is much closer to something like Unreal than like Gears of War or whatever. But like that's very recent.
From like everything that I've seen of it, also, it doesn't look like it's very much like Unreal. And that is another really fucking disappointing part of that game, is I just fucking want Unreal Tournament 2017 or 2018, whatever you want to.
You have, oh no, that's Quake, never mind, sorry.
Yeah, Quake
Champions.
Quake Live, and then there's Quake...
Quake Champions is the one, is the free-to-play one.
Quake Champions.
So, yeah. So the game that you forgot came out this year.
Quake Champions? Could a case be made for Quake Champions? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think
against these ones.
You know, and it's like is Quake Champions even technically out? Like, it was in early access for such a long time. I'm not entirely sure what the final status of that game is at this point. I think it might actually be technically released, but I'm not sure.
Technically it's released because you can pay for it.
It's free to play. When
it comes to the early access argument thing that other places have, I'm like, no, it's a thing you can pay for. Yeah. It's out.
The thing with Quake Champions is it is a free to play game, so I'm not too upset about that either way. Like whatever. Like,
I wanted to throw in The Last Guardian into this list, but it came out the last week of last year.
Last
December.
Yep.
Honestly, we might have. I don't remember. I don't have it in front of me. We might have talked about that last year for Game You Forgot. Like, I could very well see us talking about Last Guardian last year.
I put it on there, but you guys took it off right away because you said, "Oh, that game just came out."
Yeah, give it time to sit. Give it time to simmer.
I think that's totally the case for it. Is that we couldn't have said either way if it was definitely going to be a thing that we forgot.
Hey,
about.
I don't know. We did kind of the same thing with Pokemon, although Pokemon's had a little bit more time to breathe than Last Guardian did.
Pokemon didn't come out the last week of Pokemon came
out.
No,
it came out last month, I think. So
yeah, it came out in November. So I mean, there's a little bit of a difference there.
No, for sure. Yes, definitely a difference there. All right, so that's this category. The game that you forgot came out this year. The loser is Lawbreakers. The runners up there are Agents of Mayhem and Pokemon Ultra Sun or Ultra Moon, whichever fits your fancy. Although it sounds like probably neither one will. We're gonna move on to the big daddy of categories. We got Game of the Year. Game of the Year for 2017.
Before we say it, this is 5. There's 4 runners up and a winner.
Yep. So. We're not going to rank them. We're just going to try to whittle this down to 5 games. And I kind of took a brief look at this earlier today, and I think it's going to be rough. But because there's
there's going to be a couple of rough things here.
Yeah.
There's definitely going to be some rough stuff.
There's going to be some tough cuts on this list here, and it's not that long of a list. But
this is definitely one of our shorter lists, but I think that also comes from us realizing, like, if I put it on here, I'm going to have to discuss it and I'm going to have to kill it. So
yeah, like I'm trying to think of things that are out like in like the bottom half of my lists. I don't know, nothing's coming to mind of what's in the bottom of my head right now. I mean, honestly, most of it's on here. So here's our list for Game of the Year: Resident Evil 7, Yakuza 0, Horizon Zero Dawn, Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, Persona 5, Static. That's interesting to see on the Game of the Year list. Nier Automata, PlayerUnknown'S Battlegrounds, Destiny 2, Super Mario Odyssey, Wolfenstein 2, and Assassin's Creed Origins. Before we get started, is there any last-minute additions that anyone would like to make to the Game of the Year list?
I'm going to my list.
Okay.
See if there's anything on there that I think would hang with this.
I want to say, like, I definitely have not finalized my top 10, but I would probably guess like 7 or 8 of my top 10 are probably on here.
Yeah, a lot of my top 10 are on here.
No Mario Rabbids, not worth putting on the list.
I haven't played Mario and Rabbids. Like, I will. I have it. I will play it pretty soon. But
I defer to you guys. I don't have the Switch.
It's in my list of stuff that I wish that I played more of. So I guess sort of off of that, I think first cut on here is probably Persona 5.
Yeah,
that's a game that I think like I would like to have played more of.
Same thing.
But I played 20 hours of that game and didn't come back. And I'm sure that if I go back to it, it's going to be a thing that I'm going to have to start again.
Yep.
Just because I'm as lost as I am. So I would then also cut right next to that. I would cut Static.
Yeah. So I mean, I remember.
I think that's a tough case for me to make because I think it is easily the best VR thing that I played this year.
Yeah.
Like this over this holiday, I hooked my PlayStation VR back up, and I played like Accounting Plus, which is not very good. It's kind of one of the most annoying fucking things that I've ever seen. It's just Justin Roiland screaming at you for a solid fucking hour, and it's really irritating. And then I played Doom, which is actually pretty okay on the PlayStation VR. Like, it actually works in a way that a lot of games don't. Like, it actually was kind of picking up full 360-degree movement, which is definitely surprising because the VR does not have a good job with that on the PlayStation. But Static is really cool because it doesn't require that. It is, like I said, it's a thing where you have the controller in your hands, and as you're looking through it, the DualShock kind of uses its gyros, and that corresponds to what you're seeing, which is like a puzzle box that your hands are stuck in.
Right.
And each of the buttons kind of do something, but they don't really tell you what they do or how they interact. And so you kind of got to solve puzzles based on like what's on the box as well as what's in the room. I think that it's kind of in a similar boat to something like this. This is pretty lofty praise, but The Witness, where The Witness has a lot of environmental puzzles that you just kind of have to figure out.
Yeah.
I really liked figuring out those puzzles. I had a really good time with that game. But I think that's a really tough case to make when I'm the only person who played that game.
Well, and in retrospect, I don't even think it made our best games under 30 list or anything like that.
I don't think it did either.
Kind of for the same reason.
Yeah. Yep.
Is there any? I was just thinking, is there any games from that list? Night in the Woods, Edith Finch. I'm trying to think what else is on our best games under 30.
Doki Doki, West of Loathing.
Yeah, West of Loathing. I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to fight for West of Loathing on this list. That's for sure.
I think that Doki Doki has a lot of. It's very difficult to convey that unless you go and play it. I think that Night in the Woods is a similar sort of deal. For as much as I fucking love that game, and that game is, I want to say it's like my number 4. Number 4 and number 5.
Yeah, I'm working my way through Night in the Woods right now. I would say I'm about probably halfway through, and it's fun. Like, it seems okay so far. It hasn't really won me super over yet.
I think that those characters are the thing that you come to that game for.
Yeah.
I think that game
characters are super good. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's a really great characterization thing. I'm going to get it when it comes out to the Switch. But I think that, again, until you kind of get through the whole thing, you see those characters' arcs, I think that's a really tough sell. Yeah. So there are other things on this list that I might be the only person who has played them that I feel a lot more strongly about, to some degree, and I will fight those battles there instead of on these ones. So,
yeah, I mean, the only thing on this list that I have like zero input on would be Assassin's Creed Origins. Yep. I've played or beat all of the other ones except for Resident Evil, which I'm a little baby and I can't handle Resident Evil, so I just watched other people play Resident Evil 7.
That I was actually going to ask because you were talking about it like you knew, and I was like,
"Yep,
did you play through that, Mike?"
No,
and like,
no.
Nope,
I am a little baby when it comes to horror games. I am man enough to admit that I cannot handle that type of thing.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Even though, So Assassin's Creed, I guess, is the other one that I'm the only person.
Which I really want to play. I really want to play Assassin's Creed.
So
I hear a ton of good stuff about it.
I have cheated a little bit with my list, where that is tied for the same spot that Breath of the Wild is at, because I realized that if I included What Remains of Edith Finch, that would knock it up to 11 games on my list, and those are both really good open world games. They are my 2 open world.
Talk about Zelda and Assassin's Creed.
No, I don't. It's my fucking list. No, I don't. It's my fucking list. Fuck it, top 30. Top 30. There you go. That's what you get now. You got a top 30 list on the site.
That's like me levels of insane. You won't go that far, I don't think.
So the thing that wound up with that is that I've put into that game now something like 55 hours, which that's past the campaign. That is doing a lot of the side stuff. I've killed a lot of captains. Killed a lot of captains in that game. I think that game is probably the best Assassin's Creed game. I think
that's saying a lot. That's saying a lot.
I really do. Yeah. I think so.
I mean, I was told that Brotherhood's the best Assassin's Creed game, but 2 is really good.
Brotherhood is actually probably my peak with it, and that's kind of evened out with Black Flag.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Black Flag, as I've always said, is not an Assassin's Creed game.
It's a pirate.
It's a pirate game. You also happen to maybe be an assassin. Maybe, sometimes.
And so that's kind of the thing with Assassin's Creed Origins, is that it's not really an Assassin's Creed game. It's a Witcher game that you just happen to be an assassin.
Yeah, be an assassin. And there's nothing wrong with that, per se. It still means it's a great game.
Yes. I think that game is the best Assassin's Creed game. I think that game is looks fantastic from a technical perspective. I think that game has got the best protagonist that series has had. I think there are 5 other games on this list, though, that I feel more strongly about.
Okay.
And so
I wish I could have played it. It's just one of those. It's the one that I'm probably most disappointed about not getting around to checking out.
I mean, look, when we realized that it was going to be Odyssey, Wolfenstein, and Assassin's Creed on the same day.
Yep, Assassin's Creed is the one that fell behind.
It's the one that got cut for me too, and so, and you know what? They've done a really good job with supporting that game. They put out some pretty big patches that kind of redo some HUD elements here and there. They've done a weird thing where the pre-order bonus DLC is now like a Club Ubisoft thing, so you can just get it through there rather than having to go out and buy it.
Okay.
Which is okay. Like that pre-order DLC is not great either way, but whatever.
Club Ubisoft is the most bizarre of things. Of hey, here's a bunch of extra content. They don't have to pay money for. Just unlock it by playing the game, but not by playing the game through the game. Unlock it through the extra. It's a bizarre system. I always have tons of Ubisoft points because I don't always go and unlock it in various Ubisoft games I play. It's so bizarre.
And that's the thing. They've had their Trials of Anubis, which I think is really one of the weirdly most psychotic and insane things, but kind of best things, where you are fighting Egyptian gods, but it is a la Elusive Targets, where it is on a timer where you have a week to go out to this specific spot, and there's only 3 of them, and they've kind of just started looping them together, and I think this last week they had it where you could go hit them all up. The game is really, really good, but again, I do feel more strongly about 5 other games.
Yeah, at least 5 other games on this list.
And I think it would be a discussion if more of you had played it.
Yeah.
But I think because of that, and because there are these other games on here that I feel a lot more strongly drawn towards, I think that gets cut.
So the next one that sticks out to me is Horizon Zero Dawn, as kind of in the same thing as Persona. I really like a lot of stuff that I actually fired it up here just a couple of days ago with maybe I'll get back into Horizon a little bit, and I played a little bit, and then I decided that maybe I should go try to check out Night in the Woods and other things like that. But I just didn't get enough of Horizon Zero Dawn to really know my final feelings on that game. I think there might be really great stuff in there. I just have not played enough of it to really know for sure. And I have a lot of hang-ups of the stuff that I don't like, but I've kind of said multiple times, I don't really like the human-on-human combat stealth stuff that you do in that game.
Yeah.
It's nowhere near as fun as fighting the animals in that game. But I love so much stuff the story, the characters are really interesting, the world that they created is awesome, but just it didn't have enough to keep me.
Some might say it is the 4th best world of 2017.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
yeah, no, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, it's super impressive coming from the guys who all we knew before this was freaking Killzone.
Yeah, that's
to go
for sure.
into this type of game. It's probably my game of the year, but just because I haven't played that many games to completion this year. But hearing how you guys talk about a number of other titles on here, I have no problem cutting it. I'm not gonna die trying to find that one.
Again, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with game you forgot about. I think any other year, Like, I think that Horizon Zero Dawn totally would be in that contention. I think that it would be a lot easier to say, like, hey, yeah, this should be on here. But the level of quality that has been out this year, if it's not something that I stuck with or felt the interest to stick with all the way through, I think that's a really tough sell to me. Like, I think that like, yeah, like if it ends up on your list or if it ends up on anybody's list, I think that's a totally legitimate game to put on there. But for me, it was not a game that stuck.
Yeah. And you know what? And it kind of got the same type of thing as Assassin's Creed. Not quite as bad as Assassin's Creed because it wasn't the same day, but it came out the same week that Zelda came out. I mean, that's rough. That's really rough. When you have this bright, new, shiny, new system with the Switch and this amazing Zelda game that does a lot of the same open world amazing stuff that Horizon does. Like if it had come out in the month the month prior to that, or if it come out in like June or something like that, if it come out completely removed from Zelda and that was like the only thing at that time, maybe I would have stuck with it and maybe I would have had a longer experience. Maybe still not. Maybe it's still not the game for me. I don't know. But like that definitely hurt it just by being right next to Zelda, 4 days later or whatever it was. So we need to cut 3 more off of this list.
Got 3 more.
And this, I think, is where it starts getting much more complicated.
Destiny 2.
So, yeah, that was actually the next thing that I was going to say. I think there is a super solid case to be made for the 50 or so hours that I played of Destiny 2 that was really solid and really enjoyable. I think there's a lot of grind post-game. Mm-hmm. I think that there's a lot of unfortunate stuff.
I think that post-game grind is fun, though. Like, I think, like, the breadth of activities that you can do to do that rather than just do, like, hey, do the raid over and over again or wait for Iron Banner to come around and just play a whole bunch of Iron Banner. Like, the fact that, yeah, you can do the things that you want to do. Like, you don't want to play Crucible, then you can get an item from Crucible, but if you don't want to, don't have to, because you'll still get like 6 items like every week from doing other things. And it's even better now because now strikes are involved in that too now.
That is actually my case, is that now the strikes are involved in that. It wasn't beforehand.
Sure.
I feel like there was a lot of the parts that I like about Destiny that I like to engage with in Destiny, which is a lot of that strike stuff. I've said before on here, I'm not a big fan of Crucible, and even this one, with some of the changes they made, I enjoyed them to some degree. I just did like, they have their whole seasonal thing going on, and I did the Mayhem. Which I guess, like, that thing is completely fucked. If you're a warlock, you can just get unlimited supers. If you are kind of just doing what you should be doing. And, like, even then, like, you're getting them really quickly, but you would figure, again, like, with a lot of parts of Destiny, too, you would think that they would think some of the stuff out before it hits out there. You would think that they would, kind of consider heroic strikes before they hit the DLC, or you would think that they would hit the Bright Engram stuff that they had with this event. You would think that they would think maybe we shouldn't be pushing out ads to PS4s apropos of nothing, so that it's on people's dashboards now.
Oh, I hadn't heard about that.
There is, I think, a lot of really good stuff in Destiny that I feel like has been unfortunately mired with a lot of crap, either from Activision or Bungie, from really either side on that stuff. You could definitely make the case that a lot of it's Activision pushing the Eververse store. I just think that if the problems that have happened with Destiny were not coming up, I would feel a lot more heavily that it should be on this list. I think that there's a lot of the business decisions that game has made that have soured me on it. And look, like, I'm going into the PC version because I enjoy that core game. I enjoy that core loop. But there are so many external factors now to enjoying it of, well, in order to really like it, we're really going to have to get the expansion packs. And we're going to have to try to grind back up to that level. And that's not necessarily something that I'm looking forward to doing. I'm looking forward to enjoying a really good shooter with my significant other. And like, that's kind of it, you know. I'm not looking forward to doing the Destiny. Like, if it was any other game that had like a similar solid shooting, I'd go, hey, let's go with that. I don't know.
Have you heard of The Division? No.
I have, for the all of 5 hours that I put into that game.
So I mean, you know, hey, if you're looking for a loot-based shooter. No, I mean, that's always like, that's kind of, it's like, that was my idea with the Division is like, I think that, yeah, they've kind of bungled some stuff in the end game, but I think they've also made it a lot. It's the problem with Destiny 1 for a long time was it was too hard to get that really good loot. And I think they went way too far the other way, where now it's like, it's almost like it's too easy to get that really good loot, that it makes some of the stuff a little bit more trivial. Like, neither of you guys completed the raid. Neither of you guys completed Callus, because the end boss fight, Callus, the actual Callus fight, it's kind of a son of a bitch.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter, because getting that doesn't do anything better than just going and doing your milestone for the week for doing public events on the EDZ.
Well, like, and we're a part of a clan that is doing that raid on a regular basis, so I'm getting those weapons.
Hey, when you get those weapons, that's me. I'm doing that.
Exactly.
I'm doing that.
Exactly.
It's me. It's Robbie. It's Ekim. Mike is the other guy who's with there. Like, we have us three, and we're generally the ones who are doing that every week still. Because I have been in that. Like, I do enjoy just that gameplay, like that raid. Like, I think I've said many times, I have problems with the original raid, with the Callus boss fight itself. As time has gone on and more people have kind of gotten familiar with it, it's gotten a lot more manageable, but it still kind of sucks. The new raid thing that they put in there, that's a good deal shorter than the raid, because it only has like 2 encounters. One's kind of like a jumping puzzle encounter. That's not very difficult. That's not very difficult. It's mostly it's not jumping puzzle is not the right word for it. It's a communication thing. You have to jump. You have to go from platform to platform to platform, and you kind of play follow the leader. And if anyone messes up, like if 2 people are standing on the same platform at the same time, you fall into the water and then you die, and then you have to start that part over. It's not difficult or anything like that. It just requires a decent amount of communication. That new raid's pretty good, and it has completely new mechanics. And it's pretty fast. Like, I think the last time we beat it, I haven't done it this week, but last week we did it in like 45 minutes. Like, it was a pretty fast, like, start to finish, like, just run through and let's just do this. And that's cool. Like, that's rewarding. That's fun. But that path, just to get to level 30 and to get to that point where I could do the raid, I had a lot of fun doing that. Like, even, grinding out to get from 260 to 305 or whatever. 305, I guess, is what it was. Like, that was a fun thing to go down and do my milestones for the week. Dude, like, they made stuff like doing the public events significantly more fun to do, because you could track them and you could manage them. Like, the bounty system and stuff like that they came up with, like, hey, go do this lost sector, do this lost sector, do this stuff. Like, the way that it's all just kind of manageable, just from like, hey, like, whatever you're doing, there's challenges that you can complete, rather than like, I'm gonna go to the tower and I'm going to pick up a whole list of things that I need to do. It's like, no, like, while you're playing, just kind of, if you do these things, you'll get little bonuses. If you don't, no big deal, you know? Like, I like that they did that stuff. And like, I taken what the Curse of Osiris added to that game as part of what Destiny 2 was for this year. So the heroic strikes, adding that in as a milestone, like, that's a really good addition to that game. Like, it makes that I've actually have gone and played those strikes, because up until the Curse of Osiris came out, I think there was still one of those strikes I had never played, because I didn't really have any reason to go play that strike.
Yeah.
Like, I think they've done good improvements. There's been a lot of problems, like, for sure. Like, a lot of it tied around the loot boxes and the microtransactions with the Eververse and shaders and the mods and whatnot, but it hasn't, like, it's you say it's soured you on the game. Like, maybe it's starting, like, maybe like mildly starting to sour me on the game, but I'm still in Destiny 2 and I still really like playing it. I've had to literally stop myself from going and playing it to go play other games that I know I should be playing rather than more Destiny 2. Like, I don't, like, my Titan is like 334. I don't need to get him to 335. I know that that's max light level. It doesn't matter. Like, I've had to stop myself from going in and doing the milestones this week because I have other things that would be better spent of my time.
I guess to me, I felt the need to try to get up to a high light level so that I could do that high end stuff, and the fact that when we were trying to hit through Callus, we were running up against, we had so many nights where we just ran against a wall of just like, it's 3 a.m. we can't fucking do it. And that is, and maybe that's just not the thing for me. Maybe that's just not, and
it's,
you know what?
And that's
like,
tough. Like, that's a legitimate thing. Like, and a lot of times, and that's the thing about being like a 6-person raid like that, a lot of times it's not your fault. A lot of times it's like, hey, the weak link is this one guy who's on our team who's constantly messing up, or he's constantly dying. Like I'm not to like toot my own horn or anything like that. That's usually not me. Like, I'm not the one who's dying. I'm not the one who's messing up almost all the time. Nor was it either of you guys, I would say, when we were playing those raids. Like,
it was definitely the people. Like, I feel like we had some people who were really maybe not communicating out as well as they should. Yeah. And I think that that is a consequence of how we, like, I think if it was 6 people that I knew really well, that I played games with regularly, like, I think that would have been a lot easier time. But every time we were doing it, it was like, okay, well, let's go on to LFG, or let's check the clan.
Yeah, let's find that 5th or 6th person or whatever it is that we need to finish this up. Like, I mean, and look, that's just like with Destiny 1, that's very hit or miss. Like, sometimes you'll get in with a group and it's great and you'll fly through it. Like, we had, it was probably one of the nights you were through, maybe it's one of the nights with any of the people where it's like, we would bash our head with Callus, and then a bunch of people would get off, and there would be like 4 or 3 of us left, and be like, oh, let's find a group and see if we can finish this out. And then we do it in like 10 minutes, and it's like, oh god, like we can see where the weak links were here. like the other 3 people from, not you guys, I'm sure.
No, I actually know it wasn't because I had the power outage that one time, and then he was like, I'm trying to. And then Robbie was like, I'm trying to fucking do the raid, and he's losing power and shit. Like, I'm like, look, I don't fucking have control. I sent a message to him afterwards. I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. I'm like legitimately sorry that happened.
Yeah.
But no, like, it's okay, man. Shit happens. And I'm like, I know you're saying that through gritted teeth. I know you are.
Yeah, but no, at this point, kind of like you're saying, like, we have a group of 4 of us from our clan, and we're always kind of scrounging for 5 and 6, and sometimes it's, it's like this guy who is a friend of one of the members, and we'll pull him in and do that type of thing. But yeah, we don't necessarily have a full group of 6. But like I said, I don't even necessarily think that like repeating the raid and doing that stuff, like, that's not the stuff that I enjoy the most out of that. I think that the first 3 parts of the raid I really like. I really like all 3 of those encounters. They're really interesting. They're very unique. Yep. But I think just like the path, I think the campaign, maybe it's not like as, like, they talked a lot about like, we're gonna have a story that you're gonna care about. I don't know if they necessarily delivered on that per se, but I think the campaign is fun and definitely has some cool moments within it. Like crawling through the city when you don't have your light and having to get it back. Like, I mean, that probably only works one time when you go through and play the second, third, and whatever time. That probably doesn't work really well. But, like, I think it has got a lot of really cool stuff here. I mean, I'm not necessarily going to sit here and stamp my feet and say it has to be on this list, because I think Destiny only ends up about number 5 on my Game of the Year list. But, just as, like, one of the games, the few, if not the only game on this list after Horizon's gone that all 3 of us played a significant amount of time on, I think it's worth some consideration of being on this list.
I mean, and maybe we loop back around to this. Maybe that's the solution, is once we get through some of these other ones that only you and I have really gone through. Maybe then we loop back to it and we say, okay, well now how do we feel about it?
Yeah.
I think that's maybe the solution.
I feel like it's rough though to keep it on this list because it's such a packed year. I mean, you have
it is
Breath of the Wild, which is like arguably the best Zelda, and then you have Super Mario Odyssey, which is arguably the best Mario.
Yep.
And I know you guys are really high on Nier and Wolfenstein. Jesus, and
Battlegrounds.
And Battlegrounds.
And Yakuza.
That's why to me it's
I think
like Destiny 2, like I have played like a ton of hours. It's kind of like my background music. Like when I have nothing else to do, like I'll just play Destiny 2 and just listen to music or something. And the campaign was better than the first game, so it was better. It was more like what they originally, like, I guess, promised when we first got Destiny 1, or it was more what I expected. But I don't know. I don't think it compares to some of these other games on the list. Even though we all played it.
Hey, let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's just do it. I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I think. Look, I think.
I think there is some tough cuts coming up here.
I think there is definitely enjoyment to be had in that game. I think that just for me, when it came down to getting into that grind to get to that high end stuff, because I do think the high end shit is, I think like the Chaos Raid is fucking really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that is legitimately one of the coolest things I've seen with Destiny. Period. I think that environment is really good. I do really like those 3 areas, but getting to that point, sucks. getting to the point where I felt like I was contributing, because we ran through it, I think the first weekend that we could, and I was like mid 270s, and I felt like I was doing nothing, and I don't think I was the lowest level person there.
Yeah.
And so then it became a case of
that first time, just like like the baths, like just the bath boys were definitely messed us up. Like that's one of those things that you can be like, the difference between being 267 and being 290 or 280 or whatever, like makes a big deal for how much like damage those things can do. But I mean, I hear it, but you know what? It's like, it's okay. Like I said, there's games on this list that are higher than Destiny 2. There's games on this list that are definitely lower than Destiny 2. I don't think that we're also
saying here that any of these, at this point, like, in fact, I don't think that anything that was on our list was bad. I think everything that is on this list is Game of the Year quality.
Yes.
It's just, this is maybe the worst year to try to narrow this shit down.
Yeah, no,
like,
it's
so much that's good.
We have to make tough cuts. Like it's probably going to get tougher from here, to be honest.
It's like 2007 all over again.
Yeah, I guess I would maybe make the tough cut for me of Resident Evil 7. Okay. I really love Resident Evil 7. But I know that you didn't. You played it. You watched through it.
I did. It's really like, it's really cool. There's a lot of really cool stuff in that game. I really wish it's a game that I could. I mean, maybe I really should just sit down and just try it again. I don't think I have that in me, which kind of makes me sad, because like I wanted to experience what that game was and all the cool stuff that's in that game, and there's a lot of cool stuff.
I went through that game 3 times, man.
Yeah,
like I completed that thing. I went through it the first time, and then there's the Madhouse mode that you unlock, which like redoes all of the encounters so that Jack is appearing when you don't expect him to.
No.
And so like you're at the point where you're like, oh, he's definitely gone for a little while. We're definitely good, and you just hear him stomping, and then you have to also like, there's a lot that is centered in that main room of the house, and he is constantly walking through there.
Yeah.
So
it almost makes me wish
an incredible game
that I could play, like, just for my like surviving. Like, I almost wish I could play that game with like Jack and like the creepy old lady that just like turned off and just fight like the goo monsters and do that stuff. But that again, that is so much about what that game is about, though.
That's the core of the game.
Like, it's hard to like, I don't know.
Yeah, the game is, I think, easily the best Resident Evil game that I have played in probably 10 years. It is.
I mean,
it is a game that, man, I
that's
really
not
hope
necessarily saying a whole lot, but
no, it's not. But I think like you also had like Revelations, which I think it's a really
yeah,
good
that's right. That's a good point.
Yeah,
Revelations, I always heard good things about. Yeah,
and then there's Revelations is a really good game. But no, the fact that they brought that series back, I think, in such a meaningful way. I think that is saying a lot about the team, and the fact that like also it's the one AAA game that is VR supported, and it's really good. Like it's really good in VR. I eventually turned it off just because like I couldn't keep the headset on my head for that long. But
yeah, I mean, like there's
that thing is incredible.
Yeah, there's some stuff about VR that I mean maybe it's not. Like, maybe VR is what Resident Evil 7 was trying to do. Like, maybe that's not ultimately what works. Maybe it does have to be, like, an augmented reality, like... Oh, what's the Microsoft thing? I can't think of what it's called.
HoloLens.
Right, HoloLens. Like, maybe that's ultimately where it ends up, being some kind of mixture of things like that. But it's really impressive that, yeah, it's the first game, full-on AAA $60 game that didn't have, like, oh, it's a weird VR mode. Like, I mean, like Doom. Like, you talked about Doom, you know, VFR, that is... Doom, but it's like this weird kind of offshoot thing of Doom.
Yeah. It's an offshoot thing. It's like level. Well, I mean, Doom was level based, but it's a little bit more like it's weird. It's a really like it's a quality thing, but I think that it was the first example of a AAA studio going out and taking a risk. Like there was a documentary series that came out about Seven. And they're like, yeah, we totally did not plan for VR, but damn it, they made it work. They made it work really well. I feel like that game is, it's really high on my list, and especially in this year where I think there's some really good horror experiences out there. I think that's saying a lot. Yeah. So, but you know, again, being kind of the only person there who played it. That's a tough cut for me.
Yeah, no, I understand for sure.
So now we got 6.
Only one more cut.
We gotta cut one more.
So, to me, it goes between 2 games on this list, and I'm sure that your 2 that you would go between are different than mine. But the 2 that I look at the what I would call the outside looking in, or like, you know, fighting for 5th place, would be Yakuza and Wolfenstein. Like, I think the 4 in the middle there.
I think that that's what I figured you were gonna. Yeah.
Like the 4 in the middle there, Legend
rough.
of Zelda, Nier, PUBG, and Mario Odyssey, I think are all. Like, I think there's a little bit of separation between those 4 and Yakuza and Wolfenstein, and I'm not sure which way I feel between Yakuza and Wolfenstein. Honestly, I don't have my list in front of me. I probably have them in an order. I don't even know what it is. They're probably right next to each other. Because I'll start with Wolfenstein. I love a lot of what Wolfenstein is doing. It's got so much. Like, I loved that first one. Or the first reboot. Like, I love that game. I love the style and the kind of the seriousness, but also kind of the wackiness that's involved, and they take both elements all the way. Like, in a game that features your main character being beheaded in front of the Washington Monument with a saber, only to be reanimated, but then also in that game is a really like touching, horrifying scene of your dad strapping you down to a piece of wood and forcing you to try to shoot your dog. Like, those 2 things should not be in the same game at all. It doesn't make sense. But Wolfenstein 2 makes it work somehow. The thing that I kept coming back to when I think about Wolfenstein is that the combat, which I think I'm probably more of a fan of combat than most of what I hear people talk about with Wolfenstein. I hear a lot of people say they really didn't enjoy the combat. And I really like a lot of the combat, but it drops you in a couple situations through the games that are, what did you call them, like gating or whatever? Like they're like gating, they just drop you in kill boxes that are really hard to get yourself out of. Like the most annoying one being the one in the courtroom that that's the one I had the most difficulty with, and I played it over and over again, and then to find out it was just a dream sequence that wasn't even real to begin with, I was like, oh, come on, game, like that's just not even cool. Like, like all that respawning and reloading I did was actually like you could have just whatever.
You could have just been a thing where you die and then you like wake up in the middle of the trial.
Exactly, yeah.
That's it. And like I don't think that the combat, I like a lot of it, but I like a lot of it when you get to the high end stuff of like, hey, now my shotgun has ricochet bullets on it, or now like I think that first, like maybe up until the Roswell part, kind of has this really tough balance because they're balancing like your armor goes up to this point, but your armor doesn't regenerate.
Right. Your
health regenerates, but your health is at such a low level that there are definitely points that I got frustrated with that. I never dropped down in difficulty. I was like, I'm gonna fucking do it. Like, I'm going to get through this. But I think that there are definitely points in that game that the action of tying your character's physical state to your health bars and your armor bars makes that game way tougher, and in a couple of cases, like, way more frustrating.
It was that was definitely a weird choice of them doing the 200 armor, 50 health, which in reality is 250 hit points, and then you get to the halfway point of the game where you are reborn or whatever, and you're down to 100, and it's like, wait, I actually have less health now. Even, I mean, I guess it makes sense because I don't have this fancy like suit of armor anymore, but it's like,
but you also like, you can also get like regen on your health, and there's that.
Yeah, the regen on the armor does make that game significantly easier. But you know, and but like I said, like, so it's like this like tale of two things, where it's like playing through that game and seeing all the moments like are pretty great, and a lot of that stuff is loads better than what the first Wolfenstein reboot had. But then stuff like, going to Venus, like, the actual Venus part was kind of lame, but the stuff with Hitler and that stuff part is crazy and cool. And like,
I think like if this was game of the year that had the best moments in it, like, it's Wolfenstein.
Probably.
But I think that the overall experience, I think maybe Wolfenstein drops out.
Yeah, I mean, the other one that I would be on the fence with was Yakuza 0, and that's just because I think, unlike you, I didn't get pulled into like doing everything in that game. Like, I really liked what I played. I think the combat's fun. Maybe it gets a little bit repetitive over the course of the game, but I still enjoyed my time significantly through it. Like, I think
like the thing that really amps up the combat is those crazy ass kill animations that Kiryu has. Maybe not, they're not technically kill animations,
right?
But he's killing people. Like, he's murdering people. That's the thing that I kept being like, as I was playing it with my significant other, I was just like, yo, watch this. Boom. Okay, now I just bashed him in the head with this bicycle tire.
Yeah.
Or
no, the one I always liked is when he picks them up over his head, jumps, and just slams them head first onto the pavement.
Vertically down.
Yeah. Like, no, that guy's dead. His neck is broken. Yes, very much broken. But I never got pulled into like the side stuff and doing the side activities and all that stuff nearly as much as you did. Like, I really enjoyed my entire playthrough, saw the story through to its end, enjoyed that. Like, I've always kind of said that I like Majima as a character more than I think I like Kiryu, which is one of the reasons that Yakuza Kiwami was a little disappointing. I knew it was going to be only Kiryu, but it's still a little disappointing because I like Majima so much. But I don't necessarily have as many negative things, I think, to say about Yakuza 0. Maybe that's why it should be Wolfenstein. But yeah, Yakuza 0 just didn't pull me in and suck me in nearly as much as it did for you, I know.
I think it's like on my list, both of these rank higher than the one that I would say would maybe get cut out of these three, but I don't think that I'm going to be able to win that case. I don't think that Breath of the Wild is the one that I would keep on here. I think that's the one that I would take off, but I think that's...
I will fight you.
That's a pretty tough case.
Okay, we need to have this conversation, though. Because I feel like, from my memory, when we originally talked about Breath of the Wild, after it came out,
it's the best Legend of Zelda game. It's the best Legend of Zelda game.
You were much higher on it at that point than I was.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I'm higher on these 5 other games than I am on that game.
Okay. Because like
So the thing is, I still think it's the best Legend of Zelda game. I still think that it is far and away the best Legend of Zelda game that has been made.
Wow.
But I think that Nier, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, Mario Odyssey, Wolfenstein 2, and Yakuza 0 are all better games this year. I think that Breath of the Wild is really, really fucking good. But if I have to make the case that I think that those are better, then that means that I have to start going after what I think is wrong with Breath of the Wild. Which I think there are legitimate problems. I think there are things like I don't like that the world doesn't populate with any sort of hints of what you should be doing. I get that that's a thematic choice.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of other games that do that sort of thematic choice of we're not gonna feed you everything, right? But there is legitimate content of Breath of the Wild that I haven't seen because there's nothing that is telling me, hey, this is where some of this stuff is. You could get through that game and you could not get the Master Sword. Like you could very easily avoid. I mean, hell, if you wanted to, you could avoid doing the Divine Beasts.
Well, yeah, if you really want to go crazy about it.
I think it'd be crazy if you didn't.
Those speed runs are amazing. Like
they are.
The naked, doing your weird climbing thing inside the castle, and then just getting the Ganon and beating him without, like, that's all very, very impressive. But yeah, I mean,
I think the Divine Beasts are the best temples that Zelda has had. I think that the shrines act as perfect mini puzzles that act as the individual rooms. I think that is fucking brilliant, and that is some shit that Zelda has needed for a long goddamn time. They have needed to detach themselves from Ocarina of Time. And this does it in a fucking brilliant way.
Yeah.
But you know what Breath of the Wild doesn't have? It doesn't have an achievement for you kicking Hitler's head.
I mean, that would be a weird twist for a Nintendo game, but
look, I'd be into it this year, man. I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. There's some mods on the PC. I'll get back.
So
maybe then I'll loop back.
Yeah,
on.
There's some crazy stuff going on.
But the thing is that I think Breath of the Wild is a great game. To me, out of this list, it is number 6.
That's crazy. That's crazy to me.
I don't like the thing is, I feel way more strongly about Odyssey than I do like of the two.
I agree with you. I agree with you actually 100% on that.
That's fine. Main Nintendo games. I feel super strong about Odyssey. I think that Odyssey is one of the best Mario games that I've played since probably Galaxy. And there's been some good games.
I like it better than Galaxy.
Can I give you guys an easy
I actually probably think I like it better than Galaxy.
No, go ahead, guys.
Okay. PUBG already won best game under 30. So unless you all plan on having this be the overall winner, why don't you just cut that right now and keep the other 5 so we can have a more varied list?
No,
because it's under $30 doesn't mean it's not on this list.
That it's not qualified.
Yeah,
that's what we were saying. That this is a shit year for us to introduce that under 30 thing.
Yeah,
because Battlegrounds cheats because it is under $30, and I don't think that it does win because it's not even at the top of my list.
No, it doesn't win for me either.
I'm going to have to be the person to make the case that PUBG maybe should be in that one spot. We'll get to that discussion when we get to it.
So let me go back to Zelda here, because it's actually funny, because the only real complaints I have about Zelda is actually the dungeons. Like, I've never really liked... I don't like the dungeons in Breath of the Wild. Like,
which ones? The shrines or
no,
the
the actual
divine...
full-on Divine Beast dungeons.
Divine Beasts.
Like, I think the bosses are super lame in those dungeons. I think, like, there's
aren't great. No.
Yeah, like, there's some interesting mechanics that you have to do within them about, like, moving the beasts around to get to different parts of the dungeons. But, like, the fact that all 4 of them are just rinse and repeat, hey, get to these 4 spots, do this thing, then the boss will show up, beat the boss. Like, I want to say the first one I did, which I think is the one in Zora's Domain, the elephant, I think I beat the boss in that, and I thought it was, like, the mid dungeon boss. And then I beat it, and I was like, "Oh, that was it." Like, okay, that's interesting. But and I think that maybe that's just a problem with me because I was never one of those Zelda people that was like calling for massive overhauls with Legend of Zelda. The dungeons are terrible. Like, they're all just the same. Like, yeah, everything's playing off of Ocarina of Time. Like, that never really bugged me. Like, even in Twilight Princess, which is by far the worst offender of that, it never really bugged me because the dungeons got so inventive and creative, and it had cool mechanics and bosses that utilize those cool mechanics. Mm-hmm. But the shrines completely make up for that. You know, like, the shrines are what offer these crazy new cool inventive things that you've never seen before, using, you know, the stasis and the magnesis and the time, like, all that stuff. Like, it uses that stuff to great effect. What turned me from just, like, I really like, this is a really solid Zelda game, you know, go through and beat the Divine Beasts, you know, do a handful of other things, beat Ganon, I'm done, is I kept playing it after that point, and I kept exploring, and I kept finding things. And yeah, it's kind of like what you're saying, like, I didn't have a problem being drawn to things, and yeah, maybe I would wander around for a while and not find anything particular, like just find a Korok seed, and there's like 800 Korok seeds or whatever in that game, and they're all over the place, and who cares? But, like, a lot of times I was finding cool stuff, even if, yeah, like, the result of this cool thing is like, yeah, like, what's that giant thing up in the top, you know, right corner of the map? It looks like kind of like a maze. Like, I'm gonna go check out what that is and see what that is, and it's super cool and it's super rewarding, and, like, that's what that game became for me, is like this giant open world of just exploring and just finding stuff, and then they packed it with so much cool stuff.
Yeah, and I wonder if I would have done that if I didn't end up beating the game as early as I did. So like I've told the story here before, but like I kind of fluked my way into the ending where I was like, okay, I'm gonna go in and I'm just gonna kind of get a look around the castle, because I had seen like there's like some jail cells and there's a lot of different stuff
and there's some quests that say, hey, go find a recipe or go find some armor or whatever. Like, yeah, there's things that direct you to go to the castle that aren't necessarily end game stuff.
Yeah. And so, like, my immediate reaction when I, like, finally did it was like, okay, I'm definitely going to go back to this. And I did for, like, a day or two. And then I was like, well, I've kind of done the main quest here. Now what? And like, I think this game fulfills the core idea of Zelda maybe better than any other game, right? Which is Shigeru Miyamoto talking about going and exploring through caves around his childhood home. I think that it does that better than probably any other game, simply because it doesn't have that sort of checkpointing or map, you know, pointing you in a direction thing. But when I'm playing this game that has this huge open world that has a lot of really good content within it, I kind of want something, and I don't know if it's as simple as, and it's why it's like at the same level for me as Assassin's Creed is, where like there's a lot of question marks all over that map of like, hey, go here, find out what this thing is. There's a lot of those where it doesn't tell you what's going on there. You just kind of go over and, oh shit, it's a war elephant, so I have to go into this battle against an elephant. Or hey, maybe it's a new town or something like that. And maybe that's all that it needs for me, or I just need access to something like that, because when when I got done with that game, which it was 45 hours, it was a lot of time, and maybe for me, that's just the thing that I need, is I need something there to point me in the direction of that content.
You need the Legend of Zelda equivalent of Mario's assist mode. Just the pointing arrow to tell you where the cool stuff is.
Not even an arrow. I just need something to tell me where something is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I doesn't need to be all of the best content. I just need like those question marks in Assassin's Creed. Just tell me something's here.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what it is. Let me figure that out on my own. But just tell me that something's here. And I think that is, I would almost say, that's against the design philosophy
of the game.
Of Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't really want that. Because I think that counteracts what they're trying to do, which is you're going out and you're exploring. You're doing your cartography thing of, hey, I'm looking over here through my lens, and okay, over there's a tower, but there's also a shrine that's a little bit closer. So if I go to that shrine first, then at least I've got a checkpoint in case something happens. So I have a kind of a fast travel point to get over there. Yeah. And like, that's cool. I think that's a really cool thing. But for whatever reason, beyond that 45-hour mark, I didn't go back to it. And I do think it is. I do think it's probably the best Legend of Zelda game. I think that to me, it is a game that revolutionizes their formula. I think that it's something that they do dramatically different things. And I think that is fucking great. And I think that is brilliant. I think that is something that it is needed for a really long time. The only other thing, though, and I really wish there was one weapon that never broke, that I didn't have to consistently feel like I was replacing, because you have to get like Korok seeds to get more storage space.
Yeah. And
I don't really like engaging with the Korok puzzles in that game. Like, I kind of like, oh, okay, it's here. I found one. Yeah, haha, you found me. And like, that's like, it's a cute little sound effect, but like, you kind of have to go through this loop of doing that in order to have any decent inventory. Going back actually to the Champions Ballad stuff, I was like, fuck, I have no inventory space. How the fuck did I get through this thing? I have like 7 spaces for swords. How did I do this? Especially with the final fight of that, which is actually the most difficult fight in that game. Far and fucking away, that's the most difficult fight. Like there is something that, like, I do like having a variety of weapons on hand at all times, and you get weapons at a decent enough clip that you've always got something there. But I kind of just wish there was like one thing that, you know, maybe I'm powering it up through the game, or I'm using Korok seeds, or I'm doing something that's maybe making it a little bit stronger, because I don't ever feel attachment even to like the Master Sword, which is something that like runs out of power at a certain point after you use it too much.
Right, if you use it too much, yeah. I mean, I can hear that argument, because I just in general don't like things that have, you know, durability like that you can't just like, oh yeah, just, you know, like Skyrim stuff is like, yeah, just, you know, use some repair hammers or whatever and it's fine. Or maybe that's an older Elder Scrolls game. I don't know. Whatever. Like I agree with you. I don't necessarily think I like that mechanic. I think I maybe would like that game a little bit more if it was like, yeah, you always have a spear and a great sword and a regular sword, and like if you always had one of those, and yeah, you just improved them and got better versions of them as the game went on, I probably would like that mechanic better. But it never, like, once I got enough inventory space, it never really bugged me all that much, because like basically always had something like really strong on me, and then it became like the embarrassment of riches of like, all right, well, this is a really cool thing. All right, which like level like strength 60 sword do I need to drop here so I can pick up this thing that has like a fire effect on it? Like, like the Korok stuff. Like I complain about like how many Korok stuff there is, because it's kind of ridiculous, but I always like the just like, all right, so that's like a hill, and there's a rock on top of that hill. Yeah, that's going to be a Korok, isn't it? You go up there, pull it. Yep, it's Korok. Here we go. Got my one Korok seed. Like that's always like that's just it's kind of dumb, but it's really impressive just like how full they made that world. Like I haven't thought about it too long compared to other games, but I think it might be my favorite open world of all time, like of all games. Period. Like just how intricate the world is, like how well designed it is, and like. It's kind of lame, like the thing that you're talking about, like the Heroes Path mode thing that it's kind of shitty that it's only in the DLC and not in the main game, but it kind of shows you where you've been on the map, which is kind of a highlight of like, all right, well, if you haven't been there, there's something there. Like
that's how you,
like it's like, all right, I went around in circles, but I never went to this one like area right here. Cool, I'm gonna put my marker there because there's gonna be something there, almost guaranteed. Like it's kind of crappy that it's behind DLC, but
I'll say I will probably at some point go back to Breath of the Wild. I probably won't go back to Wolfenstein 2. Like ultimately that's the thing is I don't want to sound like I dislike this game. I really fucking love Breath of the Wild, but I feel really strongly about a lot of other games this year as well. It's the wealth of riches that we have of this year that makes it so, everything like this kind of ends up being, regardless of what it is, it's going to be a bloodbath. And
it's going to be nitpicking various things and whatnot. Like it is what it is.
So I think that you being kind of, I guess you'd say, lukewarm on the gameplay aspects of Wolfenstein, and me, kind of having that same feeling, I can definitely see that going.
Okay. Not to say that Wolfenstein's not a fantastic experience.
I would say it's the sixth best game of the year.
Well, I mean, you might say it's a little higher than that for you personally, but
yes,
but it's a fantastic experience, and I think it's definitely worth seeing. It's worth playing. Like if you're concerned about the combat or whatever, toss it on easy, top it on super extra easy or whatever they call their modes, the Daddy Don't Hurt Me mode or whatever it is, like just see that game and just see the crazy stuff in that game. Like it's so worth it.
Do I need to have played the first one to enjoy the second one?
No,
I never played the first one.
I don't think so. No. I think the first one is worthwhile to play.
In that stuff, it's the same sort of deal. Just crank it down to easy. Like I don't feel like you gain anything out of that game aside from trophies, achievements, that sort of thing out of playing that game on difficult. I think there's maybe a stronger case to play it on easy, because I played through, kind of in the lead up to this, I played through New Order, and I turned on console commands. And so I had all the weapons, all the upgrades, and that was fucking really fun. Like, that was just a really fun way to spend like 7-8 hours just going through and destroying Nazis. And like playing this game on easy, after I completed the campaign, I turned it on easy, and it's like, oh yeah, this game's a lot better on this easy mode. It's a lot more fun when you have like shotguns that do ricochet damage off of your shells, and those are just causing Nazis to explode everywhere.
I mean, honestly, like I might revisit Wolfenstein at some point. Honestly, probably before Wolfenstein 3 comes out. Oh, we lost Gus. Oh. There he's back. Just for the fact of like, hey, maybe I'll go through and see the Wyatt version of that and see some of that crazy LSD stuff that I didn't get to see because I picked Fergus instead. But that, like, not anytime soon will I want to necessarily go back and experience that stuff. But I probably will at some point.
I also think like the thing that's also making me go, like, I don't necessarily want to go back to that game is I don't think that DLC seems like it's all that compelling. There's like their Freedom Chronicles things. Like they are
where you're just playing like a specific character in a specific vignette thing.
That's not like any character from the main story. They're just these side things. Hey, before we go on, are we still recording, Kyle?
Yes, definitely are. I've been checking it periodically,
okay, cool.
From time to time.
I was thinking about that after I dropped. I wanted to make sure that that didn't cause any issues. So now we got 5.
All right, that's it, guys. We got our list. We're good to go here. We can go ahead.
Cool.
And...
Yeah, just in that order. I'm actually fine with that.
I mean,
later.
It goes from 5 to 1. Then it probably would have to be then if it was going to be in that order.
No. Okay. So
I mean,
now...
let's be perfectly honest. Like, I would flip 2 games, but actually this order in reverse order is actually pretty close to my game of the year list. So let's start talking through.
I don't think that Yakuza is it. I don't think that Breath of the Wild is it.
Yeah. I don't think that I mean, you said you had a significant case to make for PlayerUnknown's being number 1. So so this is what I know. I know that to me Mario is my number 1. I know to you that Nier is your number 1. I don't know how to reconcile that.
So Battlegrounds. So I guess I'll go into my Battlegrounds thing. I think that if we were judging this thing pre 1.0, it would maybe be a little bit simpler. I don't know if you've done the 1.0 update, looked at that stuff. I think that stuff is actually fucking brilliant in how they have changed. So they've changed. So there's a few things that come to mind right away. There's the UI change, which I think is a really smart UI change.
Yeah, the old UI was very ugly in comparison.
It's a really good UI. You can now exchange repeat items for BP, although it's a super microscopic amount.
That's not a new thing. That's been in there for a while. Yeah, it's been there for a while. I've done that way before 1.0.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay. Well, then that's not a new thing.
It's still a good thing, but it's not a new thing.
Yeah, they added in Miramar, which is a great
map.
I think it's maybe a better map than Erangel. Like I
haven't played it enough Miramar, to really tell you about that.
Yeah, I've played I played a few matches on the test server, and then I played a few matches live. And I really like that map. I think that map is visually. I think there is some super cool shit going on with it. Like there's the graveyard that's in the middle that has like all of the tombs. There's the city that has like these multi-storied buildings that are like 5, 6, 7 stories that. When you go into them, it's the thing where you have to like clear every floor while at the same point looking at that door to make sure that, hey, nobody's coming through it because they could be coming from either direction.
I haven't been in one of those yet. I need to go into that city with those giant buildings.
Really good. It's really fucking good. There's like there's a section in the middle that like has a plane crash through it that has like just a bunch of debris around, and it's I think really well built. I think that it feels like Erangel. Like I really love that map. I know parts of that map by memory.
Sure.
I could tell you of that stuff. But Miramar, I think, just is such a different experience that, like, it feels like this game, they really knew what they were doing when they put that thing out. Then I think the big change is I think they actually have made maybe the best replay feature that I've ever seen in a game. So what they've added is if you drop in, the game will by default record your entire game. It will record up to a kilometer surrounding you, including all players who are in that and everything that they do. So when 1.0 went live, I went on, I did a few matches, and then like the next couple of days, I just spent going through those matches and following every player that I had any interaction with. So, okay, this is the guy that I first killed. Okay, well, he didn't actually see me when I was coming in, even though we were pretty close. He didn't see me, and he was able to get into here, and he was in this church, and he knew how to hide in this one area specifically. So that's something that I can take with me. And then, okay, so this is what happened. He saw me through that window, so that's something that I should be a little bit better with hiding myself. Or, okay, this guy, he totally saw nothing because I was in one of the tombs in the graveyard, and he couldn't see anything around there, and he was doing his proper checks of going through every single one and trying to have a shotgun facing them. But I just outgunned him just by a little bit, and that's how I was able to kill him. This guy, he went into this house after I had shot him, and he was able to get just enough of himself healed, and he also had an energy drink that he had drank like a minute before, so that was helping him heal, which is why he was able to come out with the 4X scope and get me. And okay, but then this guy also, he had like 5 kills before me, so it's not just that this wasn't just a luck situation. Like, he knew what he was doing, and he also knew, like, okay, if I'm driving and I'm getting shot, the best way for me to do this is to go over this cliff, because I'm not going to die if I go over this cliff. But he was also smart in that he was keeping an eye on the cliff above there, so that he knew he wasn't going to get shot from down there, even though that's what the guy who was shooting him initially was actually trying to do. He couldn't get a good beat on him. And I did that for like a solid 2 hours of just going through this match and looking through and seeing like, okay, this is what I can learn off of this. And I think that stuff that they've added, I know that I initially was like, yeah, I really like the stuff with Fortnite. I like how they had their spectator mode set up with Fortnite.
Yeah.
But I think the replay mode that they have built in now to 1.0 is something that makes me rethink how I'm playing that game.
Sure, because it lets you learn strategies that other people are utilizing.
Yeah.
And a lot of times those are strategies of people that killed you and or maybe even won the game, like won the chicken dinner during that match that you did not. Because, the kind of crazy thing about PUBG is that every single time that plane loads up, one of those people gets a chicken dinner, and we've only got it the one time, We
got it, yeah. I think, I legitimately think if we had won ours on 1.0, I probably still would be like, okay, this is what happened over here, and because our win was so insane.
Yeah, it would have been great to see it, like what that guy who the person who we ended up shooting at the end there. I ended up shooting at the end there. What he had done to get to that point in that circle would have been really entertaining to go back and watch. I hear ya. The thing I push back against Battlegrounds is, I'll forgive them. Like with the 1.0, it's been it seems like the frame rate's been worse than it was prior to that. It seems like the rubber banding on the server and stuff like that's been real rough. The little bit I played, supposedly they put a patch out there yesterday that fixed that. I have
part of the frame rate also is supposedly that recording feature.
Okay.
That some people have turned it off and they've had more luck with it. So
yeah, so it could be that.
Could be the problem.
I'll forgive it, like the rubber banding and stuff like that. Whatever, it's a new release. You put out patches. I'm sure it's probably going to be fine by the next time I go and play it. My main problem that I have with PUBG is that I do not like at all the progression system or lack of progression system in that game. Like the getting the coins based on how good you do, which is I think it's a little bit too weighted towards surviving as long as you can. I think it should be weighted a little bit more towards how many kills did you get, because I feel much more successful coming out of a match. I feel just as successful coming out of a match if I finish 4th place as I do if I die in the 40s but I got 3 kills. I feel just as equal, maybe not more towards I got some actual kills in here. And that's not how, like, you get much more points the longer you survive, and I think that's cool. But even without that, like, I think that could be a good change, but even without that, what you use your gold for to buy these loot boxes that are hooked into their whole Steam marketplace, you know, the people that are going AFK and hackers and stuff like that, like, I just don't like any of that stuff. Like, I feel like I never get anything good out of it. I feel like the reason I never get anything good out of it is because it's hooked into this marketplace where everything has a monetary value, and I just feel like I'm playing through it and I have fun. Like, physically playing the game is great, and then I'll go through and I'll play a bunch of matches and I'll buy a loot box and I'll get the same frickin' yellow striped shirt for the 6th time, and I'm like, why did I do all... Like, I mean, I'm having fun. Like, admittedly, I'm having fun. And maybe that's... I just need to make peace with, like, I just play the game to play the game and not worry about the stuff in the background. But I look at so many other multiplayer games that have interesting progression systems, stuff for you to work for, whether it's challenges or it's unlocking cosmetic items or whatever it is, leveling up and prestiging and all that stuff. Like, I feel like there's something more, like, more carrot on the stick that PUBG could do to make playing consecutive matches over and over again more of a meaningful thing other than just the search for the chicken dinner, you know?
Yeah. So I think that's a legitimate thing. I would kind of go in the opposite direction, where I would almost not want there to be any sort of progression in terms of coins, in terms of getting that stuff. I would just like to be like, hey, you know, whatever, you made it this far, okay, you get a hoodie, or you get coins and then you buy a hoodie, or whatever it is. I don't like that there's loot boxes in that. I think that stuff is a bad system. I think that they would be better not having stuff, because, like, I think of the stuff with loot boxes, like this year especially. I think that there's a lot of instances where loot boxes kind of just ruin the well for these games and their progression stuff. And even last year, like, I could definitely see, like, there's problems with how even stuff like Overwatch works with their progression system of, hey, you got a loot box, but it's nothing.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Like, I think that there maybe needs to be just an entirely revamped system on that, or nothing at all. Like, honestly, if you just said, hey, everybody's got the same stuff, and maybe you go out and you buy like a $5 pack and that's cosmetic stuff. That's kind of what they got going with the Xbox version right now is, like, they have like limited time buys of, like, I got like a hat and a tracksuit thing. And that was just a straight purchase. That wasn't even a loot box thing at all. I kind of think that they'd be better with that, because I think that one way or another, you remove that problem with it lowers the problem with hacking. It lowers the problems with that stuff. So I could definitely see that being a better thing. I think that it's, of these games, the game that I've thought about maybe the second most out of this list. It's a game that I consistently go like, man, I really just want to go and, you know, like, I just have days where it's like, okay, I want to go and just play some. It's actually one of the things that the Xbox version is really good at. The Xbox version is actually, I think, a little bit easier to just pick up and play.
Okay.
I don't know why it is, but the fact that you have to use a mouse and keyboard, and there are people who are going to be infinitely better than you with sniping on the PC version. Like, there is something a little bit easier about just picking up a controller with that game, to the point where I'm like, man, if this thing just ran just a little bit more smoothly.
And if it was like up to date feature wise with the PC version with Miramar in there and all, like, I could definitely see the Xbox.
Vaulting. It's got vaulting, which is really weird.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing that they took over. It's like, oh, okay, I guess. I mean, cool. Like, vaulting's great. Like, vaulting's fucking great.
Yeah, it adds a... like, the first time I vaulted through a window that was glass and it crashed, I freaked out because I thought, I'm like, what is that? Who is shooting? Oh, that was me. Like, I did that. It's like... I forgot that was a thing. Like, right. I knew you could vault through windows. I forgot that there's glass there. Yeah, I mean, so, like, that's the thing, is, like, I absolutely love playing Battlegrounds, but, like, everything around the outside of playing Battlegrounds, I kind of don't like at all. Like, even something as simple as, like, they lock customizing your character beyond, like, a 3,000 point...
3,000. Yeah, that's really dumb.
Which is a lot. Like, that is several chicken dinners worth of points just to, like, change your hairstyle or change your hair color or what.
That's like what? At that point, that's a month's worth of, like, the easy loot boxes. Just to change, like, what your character looks like. Mm-hmm. Just to change your character's hair color.
Yep.
That's really bad.
Like, things like that. And you know what? In the test server, they had that unlocked, and I really hope that with 1.0, they would just have that unlocked, and that would just be a thing, and it totally wasn't. It's totally back in there. So, like, yeah, I think that they have definite improvements that can be done with whatever it is, with the loot boxes, with the progression system, whatever it is. I think that there is a lot of work to be done there. But playing that game is absolutely fantastic. The thing,
and honestly, like, that to me is the easy solution between this Sophie's fucking nightmare choice that we've got going on here, is that I would say Battlegrounds, because I do think that playing that game is incredible. Yeah, there's a lot of bullshit that surrounds it, but I mean, we could also make that case with Overwatch. Like, there was a lot of bullshit that was around Overwatch with loot boxes.
Yeah, Overwatch never bugged me anywhere near as much as Battlegrounds has bugged me. Like, especially once they put out the ability to spend coins to buy the skin that you want, I very much cooled on Overwatch's stuff. Like,
I never felt like you were getting enough to reasonably get that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, not to like unlock everything, sure, but to like,
but like even to like unlock like a basic level, like, hey, I want to get something that's going to make this character look the way that I would kind of like them to. Like, I think that's like probably in like what, the purple range or so.
Yeah,
on those,
like 750
otherwise it's just like,
or whatever.
It's just like, hey, here's a different color.
Yeah.
I
mean, so that's the thing. Like, I like, similarly to Battlegrounds, I think Overwatch would be a better overall experience for me if, like, it was like, hey, unlock this skin for Zenyatta by healing X amount of players, or doing X amount of damage, or repelling X amount of damage Transcendence. Like, I think, like, that would just be a much better game. The same way I think Battlegrounds would be a better game if you were just earning that stuff through gameplay. You know, for whatever that is. You got your first chicken dinner, great. Here's a t-shirt that says, I won a chicken dinner. Like, whatever it is, like... Yeah. Which actually there is a chicken dinner T-shirt, but I don't think you have to have won a chicken dinner to get that. I think you just had to have buy it.
It's not a very good chicken dinner.
I mean,
thing.
My character is wearing it, but
it's not a very, very great shirt.
No,
I don't know. I think that, to me, I think that's the choice that doesn't end with us being here all night. Like, honestly, that's the thing. I feel super strongly about Nier. I'm sure you feel super strongly about Odyssey.
Yeah, like, Odyssey is a game that I have no complaints on whatsoever. Like, as I've told you guys, I got every single moon in that game, 840, whatever it is. I beat the final ultimate, like, version of Bowser, and got the, like, thank you for playing screen at the end, and I was like, man, like, I've put 40 hours or 50 hours it took me into this game, and I wish there was more of this game to go play. Like, I absolutely adore Super Mario Odyssey. Like, I did every last little thing in that game. I have no complaints. Like, I have complaints about Breath of the Wild. I have complaints about Battlegrounds. I have less complaints about Nier, admittedly, than I do about many of the other games. But, like, I can't really think of anything negative that I would throw against Mario Odyssey. Other than maybe the Brutals kind of suck. Like, the Brutals are kind of lame characters. Like, that's about it. Like, I think those boss fights are fun and interesting, but the characters themselves are kind of lame. Like, that's about it. Like, I have nothing really negative to say about Mario Odyssey. I think
that's exactly how I feel about Nier, though. Is the thing.
Yeah.
Like, I think that Nier is the kind of game that I think people who are developing games should actually go and play, because I think that game makes the fact that you have to go through it 5 times. I think that they make each time really compelling. I think that it's the kind of game where I go, yeah, I'm totally fine deleting my save file because I'm going to go back to it. Like, that's the thing. I'm going to go back to that world, and I'm going to experience that shit again.
I'll say, I mean, playing through it 5 times is a misnomer. I mean, reality, you play through the same sequence twice. You play through,
yeah. I mean,
and then you play a third. True. You play the third sequence that is an extension of that story, and the 4th and 5th thing are just kind of slightly variants. Just the end, just different things of the ending. I think take a total of like 15 minutes.
There are things that Nier does that no other game has tried to do and has succeeded at them in such a way that even if I did have the most complaints that I have on that game are that the PC version's a little bit buggy. That's it.
At the time that I played through it, I can't say I ran into any issues with the PC version.
I tried to pop it back in a couple weeks ago, and like I had a lockup when I was doing some resolution stuff.
Actually, so hold up. There's a resolution problem with that game. That's the only thing I will say. Yeah. Like, I don't know what it's locking me at, but the text and stuff like that is always muddy. Yeah. And I've heard something about that there's a workaround for it. I never really did it because it honestly never really bugged me. It kind of just became part of the game.
But that's the thing is I also played through that game on the PS4.
Okay.
So that was not an issue for me.
Right.
I think that Nier is the kind of game that I look at and I go, God damn it. This has never been attempted before, and like I think that like that's not me saying that like, hey, what Mario Odyssey is doing is stuff that is old and stale. It's stuff that they've done before. I don't think that they've done it as well as they've done it in Odyssey. I think that's the best that they've done it, but I think there is something about Nier that when I look at that world, at those characters, at that story, at the gameplay, like the mix of it being a bullet hell shmup and a platinum action game, all of that stuff works so fucking well that like I that game to me it's the kind of thing that I think that everybody should play through, especially if you're interested in game design, because I think that they do things that have never been tried before with game design. With designing a story around this kind of world and these sorts of characters who are so inherently messy and tough to deal with, because there's the attempt of them trying to be human but always failing at it, and learning that this idolization of humans that they put on this pedestal for so much of this game. We're in full spoiler territory also, I think that's fair to say. But learning that idolization has been dead for centuries, millennia.
You play through the first playthrough Route A in that game under a certain expectation of what's going on, and they just destroy all of that by the end of Route B and the beginning of Route C. Of just like, all that stuff that you thought was going on, no, none of that's going on. Like, there are no humans. This is a machination of androids trying to give you.
Was created specifically for this purpose, so that they wouldn't fucking kill themselves, basically, so that they would have some kind of purpose.
Yep.
Like that's something that like Metal Gear has kind of toyed with the ideas of like,
it is Metal Gear-esque,
creating...
isn't it?
Yeah, like there's definitely parts of it that they've tried to do, but I think that by putting you in the shit as much as they do with Nier, that it is a thing that when those moments happen, they break you, and it's a game about, in a lot of ways, it's about putting those pieces back together. Like you do have the sort of same reaction that 9S has when he discovers that, like, oh yeah, by the way, 2B, this character that you played, yeah, she's actually a terrible person who keeps killing 9S, specifically because he keeps figuring this shit out. Like, they keep having to kill him, and, like, you know, like, the whole thing, oh my god, there's so much about it. Like, you know how he's like, yeah, everybody calls him Nines, but you notice nobody else actually calls him Nines, but then you realize that the person who calls him Nines is actually 2B right before she fucking kills him every time. And that's what he means by everybody calls me 9S. It's them essentially acting out this play of we're trying to keep some semblance of normalcy, and we're trying to have some kind of purpose here that I think is profound. I think the only knock that I would maybe level against it is that it is not a super technically great looking game, but I think that the world that they built around that more than makes up for that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the levels and the map is awful in that game, and trying to direct you to where to go and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I don't think the world, like the actual design of like the setting of where you are is not particularly interesting, and it's kind of blah and gray by design. I mean, the only thing I like, none of that really bugged me all that much as far as the world. The thing that I like, the only thing I would throw against that game is that I think a lot of the shoot 'em up sequences go on way too long in that game. Like, specifically, like the end of, I think it's the end of Route A and the end of Route B, where you're doing the whole sequence of having to blow up the giant Goliath in the water. Mm-hmm. Like, that sequence just kept going and kept going and kept going. And if it was particularly like interesting shmup stuff, that would be one thing, but none of it ever felt particularly interesting or difficult in any way. It just kind of was like, I felt like I was kind of just doing things, and the same kind of can be said for some of the hacking stuff. Like, it becomes pretty clear when you start going through Route B that the hacking with the 9S is by far the easiest way to take down these enemies that otherwise are fairly difficult, because 9S doesn't pack as much of a punch as 2B does with his weapons. But that stuff ends up, okay, you're kind of like repeating the same set of, I don't know, 10, shoot 'em up puzzles, over and over again. You're repeating them, the, slight variations on the same type of thing. And like, that stuff did get repetitive over the course of the time, especially when you get the enemies that were really difficult and you just kind of ended up hacking into them over and over again and kind of doing the similar type of puzzles over and over again. Like, none of that stuff was particularly difficult or anything like that, but I also didn't find it particularly compelling. All that being said, like it's like Mario Odyssey and Nier are like on like opposite ends of the spectrum. Is like Mario Odyssey is like excellence in gameplay design, and that's what it is. It is pixel perfect. It is like variety in what you're doing, the variety in the areas you go to, the jumping, and all that stuff is like perfect, and it's varied. But Nier is deep and thoughtful and has stuff to say about just humanity,
about existence,
about existence, about
what it means,
what do our emotions mean, and I said, like, the way that game ends was like, I mean, I didn't like leave me in tears or anything like that, but I just sat there for a while. I was just like,
it was impactful,
man. Wow,
it's an impactful game. So like, I guess if I had to knock anything with Odyssey, which there's not much, I I don't like that you fight the Brutals, each of them twice. I think that that's
3 times.
kind of just a little bit boring. Like, I don't think that's great. And then there's the whole like tower thing at the end, which is not very good. And then there's also like a couple of levels that I think like are just kind of not memorable. Like there's the Seaside Kingdom. Or not the Seaside Kingdom.
I'm like, no, not Seaside Kingdom.
The what's the underwater?
Yeah, the underwater. I don't remember what it's called, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
Well, the underwater one, I don't think that's very memorable. There's like a couple of those that I just don't. I don't feel like they are as stand out as a lot of those other levels are.
Yeah. So here's what I'll say. My list is not final yet. Super Mario Odyssey, like I said, is my game of the year for sure. Like, I don't have any doubt of that for me personally. Nier is higher than Battlegrounds on my list. And so if we were going to go off of that, of Nier being your number one and Nier being higher than Battlegrounds, I'd say it's Nier.
Okay. Look,
Adam's
I'm fine. I'm fine with that. I will take that, and I think you're right. They are fucking completely opposite ends of the spectrum.
So different games.
Which is like, the thing is, I've spent 40 plus hours with each of those games at this point. Like, and guess what? I'm gonna go back to Odyssey, and I'm going to go get the golden hat at one point. Like, I am going to fucking get that golden top hat on top of that fucking castle. But Nier, to me, is a game that is impactful in a way that, like, Mario Odyssey is like getting a big old dose of dopamine right into your arm, and you're just like, oh man, this is great. I'm so happy playing this.
Yeah, you're having a really good time playing Mario Odyssey. Same cannot be said for playing. I mean, you're having a good amount. It's not hard to say, but you're not having necessarily a good time. You're not having a happy time playing Nier Automata.
You're going like, man, this is some shit going on here. Yeah. And by the end, you're like, okay, there's maybe some hope for this world, which I think is, I think that's actually one of the best parts of Nier, is that they sort of leave the end open to be like, hey, here is this, we're going to give you this little bit of hope.
Yeah. That part, like, are you going to help someone? This might be someone you actively dislike. Do you still want to, like, that part was just like, it's like uplifting and just like, let's help each other. Yes.
Even before that, like, when they're kind of like zooming back and they're showing like, hey, here's the city. It's still here. There's still life here. That life didn't end.
Yeah. Just because these two fought and killed each other, or I guess no, if you go 9A, she doesn't die, but like, they fought and killed each other, and all this stuff happened.
Just because these people are dead does not mean that the world ends.
Yeah.
Like, there's something to be said about, like, hey, this death might feel like the end of this world, but the world is going to keep going. Yeah. I think there is something really profound about Nier, and I would say that there's also something profound about Odyssey. Like, that game is an incredible fucking platforming game, and it's this sort of thing where every time I'm playing it, I'm like, man, I'm in love with it. Yeah. I think that is such a close second in this case.
I get into the zone when I play that game, and I'm pulling off crazy combinations of platforming moves that I couldn't begin to think that I would have figured out. Like, I would, like, when that game first came out and you were watching people that were like speed running the demo at Best Buy and stuff like that, and I was like, oh god, I'll never be able to do stuff like that. And I totally ended up being able to pull all of that same stuff off just because of how just like perfect it controls and perfect it is. But I'm okay because I love Nier as well.
The speed runs of the Mario Odyssey demo are maybe one of the craziest things that's happened this year. Yes. Of people speed running at a Target kiosk. Yep. That's great.
All right.
I'm super happy with this list, though.
Yeah.
Regardless of, this is like really maybe the best year that we've had probably since 2007.
Yeah, the year that everyone talks about. You know what's funny is I thought going into it I would have ended up causing more of a stink about Destiny 2 not being on this list, and it feels fine. It feels fine looking at the end here. So the winner, Game of the Year for 2017 for Pixel Related, is Nier Automata. The runners-up...
For the glory of humanity.
For the glory of your heart. For the runners-up, in no particular order, are PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, Super Mario Odyssey, Yakuza 0, and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. You know, I've been surprised to see that Breath of the Wild has been at the top of a lot of Game of the Year lists, with like Mario being down in like the 4s and 5s, and I'm like, what did... Like, I love Breath of the Wild. I love Breath of the Wild. Yeah. But to me, Odyssey is still a pretty significant step higher than Breath of the Wild. And I'm always kind of surprised by that. But
I think like Breath of the Wild, like it's a solid game, but I think that the fact that it is that Odyssey is set within these specific levels, like I think that just gives it a little bit more of a sort of cohesion, and you know, like, hey, this is what I'm getting in each world. Pretty straightforward, pretty quickly. You know, this is the thing I'm going to be working towards.
And the thing that you say about like Legend, like I've said about Legend of Zelda, about like how if you go into an area, there's going to be something there. That same thing I think can be said for the majority of the parts in Mario Odyssey, except they are significantly denser with their stuff. Yeah. So it's like that stuff is much more packed together, especially when you start getting towards the end game and you are hunting and searching for these last ones, and all you have to go off of is like a clue that the parrot gives you, and maybe an X on the ground if you want to pay the coins or use an amiibo to find it. Like that's, you still got to go and do the work and figure out what this is based off of this clue. Like, yeah, it's a good game. It's been a great year.
New characters should have been Uncle Amiibo. You're right.
Uncle Amiibo's pretty. I mean, it's pretty funny. Uncle Amiibo's pretty funny. Yeah, a great year for 2017. It's a great year for games. It's going to be interesting to see. Like, there's a lot of stuff for 2018. But it's hard to imagine what will come out. I mean, certainly no one expected Nier to be what it was at this time last year. So,
hell, nobody expected PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds
to be a thing.
Period.
Yes, that's a good point.
Like none of us knew, I would say, anything about that game.
No.
And that we're like that high on it is incredible. Like the same thing with Yakuza. Even like Yakuza, like I kind of knew it, but I didn't really know what I was getting into until got into 0. God damn.
Yeah, well, hell, I mean, Odyssey wasn't even announced until E3, so I mean, take that for what it is, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. This is us saying goodbye for 2017. Although by the time you're seeing / listening to this, it's actually 2018. Because that's how
we'll have articles going up on the sites for our Game of the Year lists. Yep. We'll have maybe some sort of write-up for this stuff. Maybe.
Probably. We'll see. We'll see how we feel about that.
We'll have, if you're listening to the audio podcast, we'll have the video version up on Twitch.
Yep, up on Twitch.
YouTube also.
Up on Twitch and YouTube. We'll have those posted on the site. And we'll see what Pixel Related looks like for 2018. Gus, do you want to talk at all about what you're going to be doing? No? You don't want to talk about your early retirement?
Not right now.
All right. Okay. That's fine. I'm good though.
Spoilers. God.
All right. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you so much for listening along with all our crazy deliberations. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.